In this video, I want to discuss how to complete the Identifying Sounds of Poetry worksheet, and also go over the formulas with you on how to explain how we identify these techniques. What you're going to notice right off the bat is that this is very similar to the figurative language assignments that we've been doing. So what we're going to do again is we're going to take a look at these lines of verse, and now we're going to be identifying sound devices. You can see some of our choices there as far as what we're looking for. This one's a little bit different because you're going to be finding two. So for each one, you're going to be finding two sound devices and explaining both in the boxes. Okay, so let's jump into our formulas and how we will be answering this part of the assignment. Okay, so in the past we've talked about analyzing figurative language. Now we're analyzing sound devices and these formulas for success. So very similar to our conversations about figurative language, metaphors and similes, for example, and our formulas for like what is compared to what using what and how we phrase our answers. I want to go ahead and make sure that we talk about the sound devices and how we're going to be doing that. Okay, so let's start with the easiest thing to identify whether or not a poem rhymes. Okay, so as you're looking at a poem, if you see that it rhymes, what we want you to do is we want you to identify the specific type of rhyme that's going on. Okay, so you cannot just put rhyme. Okay, you have to put something along the lines of perfect end rhyme or internal slant rhyme. Those types of rhymes were discussed in the video that you should have already watched. Okay, so our formula for explaining rhyme, first of all, our specific type of rhyme, is we're going to talk about what words rhyme where. Okay, so if we take a look at a line of verse and we identify that it's perfect end rhyme that's being used, our example and how we explain it would read something like this. So what words rhyme? The words bright and light perfectly rhyme. Okay, where? So the words bright and light perfectly rhyme at the end of lines 3 and 5. So in our formula, what words rhyme? Bright and light, where? The end of lines 3 and 5. You'll notice in this example that we've used the word perfectly rhyme and the word end. That directly ties back to the technique. So I would challenge you to do that. Knowing that end rhyme takes place at the end of a line and that perfect rhyme is when words are spelled mostly the same in rhyme, I would challenge you to work these types of words into your formula. Again, the formula for a rhyme, whether it's end rhyme, perfect rhyme, internal perfect rhyme, internal, slant end rhyme, whatever it might be, is what words rhyme where. Okay. The next one then is alliteration, assonance, and consonants. Okay, so again, alliteration, repetition of sounds at the beginning of words. Assonance, the repetition of vowel sounds in the middle or the end of words. Consonants, repetition of consonant sounds in the middle or the end of words. So we want to write down in our explanation what letters repeat in what words. So we take a look at our example, and we see that it's alliteration. Okay, alliteration is our technique. Okay, so we want to explain what letters repeat in what words. So the letter B repeats in the words Billy baked bread. Okay, so the letter, which is very important to alliteration, assonance and consonants, or letters, right, repeats in what words? In the words Billy, baked, and bread. So when we do alliteration, assonance, or consonants, and we're explaining it, what letters repeat in what words? And again, don't need to worry about line numbers, don't need to worry about any of that. Just what letters repeat in what words. Okay? Next then is repetition or parallel structure. Again, that's repetition. So words that are lines or phrases that are repeated over and over again. What we want to make sure we put down in our formula, so we've identified that it's parallel structure. We've identified that it's repetition. We want to write down what words repeat, how often, and where. Okay, so we take a look at our line of verse and we see that the word days has repeated several times. We've identified it as repetition. Our explanation would be the word days, so what words repeat? the word days repeats how often? 3 times. Where? In lines 1, 3, and 7. Okay, so if it's repetition, what words repeat how often and where? That's our formula. Okay, and then the last one is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is that sound word like bam or crack or pow or bang. We just want to write down for our formula here what word replaces the sound it makes. So you would just say, for example, the word glop replaces the sound made, or the word bam replaces the sound that's made. So onomatopoeia and its formula, not too difficult. Okay, so again, just to kind of look at everything in one spot. With rhyme, you must identify the specific type of rhyme, and we need to put down what words rhyme plus where. So our example technique would be perfect, type, right? End rhyme, right? How do we know? The words bright and light perfectly rhyme at the end of lines 3 and 5. If it's alliteration, assonance, or consonants, what letters repeat in what words? So the letter B repeats in the words Billy, baked, and bread. If it's repetition or parallel structure, what words repeat how often? That's always the one that gets left out, by the way. What words repeat how often plus where? So the word days repeats 3 times in lines 1, 3, and 7. And then if it's onomatopoeia, just simply explain what word replaces the sound that it makes. Okay, so to see how this carries over back into our Identifying Sounds of Poetry worksheet, again, we're taking a look at these lines of poetry. Slash marks show where the line breaks occur. We're going to identify 2 sound devices being used, and we're going to explain each one of them. So we're given our example here. Example 1, right, is a greedy and ambitious cow determined she would graze on all the fields for miles around. She grazed for days and days. My choices are alliteration, consonants, onomatopoeia, repetition, or rhyme, and I need to pick out 2. So first of all, I always start with rhyme. Does this poem rhyme? Okay, so our line breaks here, right? These backslashes tell me this is the end of line 1. This line break here tells me this is the end of line 2. So I don't see any rhyming there. And then this is the end of line number 3. I don't see any, cow doesn't rhyme with days and around doesn't rhyme with days. Okay. But as I read this, I noticed that there was a rhyme. Okay. And it actually starts with line 2. A greedy and ambitious cow determined she would graze on all the fields for miles around. She grazed for days and days. So right away, I identify that graze and days rhymes. Okay, so first of all, where does this take place? Okay, this is what we would call an internal rhyme because it takes place, the word graze is inside of line 2 and days is at the end of line 1 and also here, line 3, also here in lines 3. Okay, so this is an internal rhyme. So the next question I have is it perfect or is it slant? Okay, graze and days, pretty close rhyme, but it's not perfect because it's not spelled the same. So technically, we could call this an internal slant rhyme. Okay, internal slant rhyme because it's pretty close. So if we go back and we take a look at our formula, right, and we go back and take a look at this page, we want to identify what words rhyme where. Okay, so here's how we would frame a possible answer. The words graze and days rhyme internally in lines, in this case, 2 and 3. Okay, so we have what words rhyme and where. Okay, they rhyme internally in lines 2 and 3. So that's how we would shape that first answer. Okay, our second one then really comes down to what else do we see? So I see things like right off the bat, I see a word greedy, I see the double E. I'm looking for other E's. Okay, I see that there are E's in the words determined and she. There's an E in field. There's an E in miles. So right away I notice that the letter E is repeating. That's called assonance. Okay, so if we go back and we take a look at our example, right, and we take a look at our formula, okay, what letters rhyme in what words? So the letter E repeats in the words, and again, you don't have to put every single word. Greedy, determined, and fields. And again, for our formula, what letter repeats in what words, that's what we're looking for. Okay? So, again, this is just an example. As you'll go through here, you'll see I've given you another example for number 2. I've given you an example: butter, brickle, pepper, pickle, pumper, granite, pumpernickel, peach, pimento, pizza, plum, peanut, pumpkin, bubble gum. Obviously, one of the examples is alliteration. So you'll see how that word, how that is phrased here. And then we also have what's called perfect internal rhyme. And we've explained how to do that here with what words are rhyming where. Okay. As you go through the rest of these, you'll see you're working all the way through to number 10. You're going to be identifying 2 techniques and explaining both in the boxes provided. Okay. Make sure you are double checking your formulas to get that correct. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.